Let's take a look at how to deploy a PostgreSQL database cluster in a multi-cloud environment. In this example, we'll place 3 cluster nodes on 3 different providers. 3DS Outscale on its government SNC region, Scaleway on datacenter Paris 1. And the last node will be on a physical LXD server at OVH. Once logged into the LayerOps console, let's select the target multi-cloud environment in our project and check that we've created resources on the various providers beforehand. Here we can check that we're in the right Scaleway region and that 2 instances are running. Let's do the same for Outscale's resources, where we can validate that we are in the government SNC region. And finally, let's see if we have any resources available on our physical LXD server at cloud provider OVH. Great! Everything looks good, now let's deploy our cluster. In this example, we'll show you how to use the YAML file import function, which describes the characteristics of our services. Here, the notion of constraint allows us to specify on which resource pool, and therefore on which cloud provider, we're going to deploy the service. The notion of tag associates a service with a resource pool. For example, if the tag is ESCW, the service will be deployed on the Scaleway provider. Here, the load balancer service will be deployed on at least one of the 3 providers. Awesome! Let's get started. We can see that 4 services are currently being deployed, so let's take a closer look at the load balancer. We see that it's deployed on the LXD resource pool and therefore on cloud provider OVH. In another tab, let's open our load balancer's web interface, which we'll be using in a few moments. We can see that our 3 PostgreSQL nodes are currently unavailable. Let's take a closer look at our service deployment progress. On the first node service, we can validate that it has been deployed on the OVH LXD pool. Now let's check the second node, which should be on the Scaleway provider. And finally, the third and last node, on the Outscale government SNC provider. Great! All that's left now is to check that our different cluster nodes are able to communicate with each other from the different cloud providers, and that they do so encrypted using MTLS. On each service, we can check the service logs to obtain information about the service. That sounds pretty good. We can see from the logs that nodes PGSQL1 and PGSQL2 have registered as a standby with node PGSQL0. That's it. Here's how to deploy a PostgreSQL cluster in just a few minutes in a multi-cloud environment thanks to LayerOps.